Hello everyone, welcome back to TFD. Week 2 of the season is nearly in the books, and it kicked off Thursday night with the Commanders taking on the Packers. Green Bay walked away with a commanding 27-8 win. At first glance, the score might suggest a competitive game, but the action on the field told a completely different story. Through 3 quarters, the Packers racked up 345 yards compared to Washington's 112. That pretty much sums up how lopsided things were. At one stage, Jaden Daniels had only 8 completions on 13 attempts for just 43 yards, highlighting the Commanders' offensive struggles. For Green Bay, the storyline remains the same as Week 1. This defense is the real deal. They look like a unit capable of pushing the team into Super Bowl conversations. Micah Parsons once again dominated, making impact plays that don't always show up on the stat sheet but completely shift momentum. On offense, Tucker Kraft delivered the best performance of his career with 6 catches for 124 yards, giving Jordan Love another reliable weapon. Meanwhile, Washington is facing some early concerns. Expectations were fairly high entering the season, but their flaws are becoming clearer. They're not a bad team, but they don't look like a great one either. The offensive skill talent just isn't enough to lift them against top-tier defenses, and with Daniels struggling, the problems only multiplied. It wasn't one glaring issue. It was a collection of small breakdowns that underscored the gap between them and true contenders. Sunday gave us plenty more action, starting with Ravens, Browns in a matchup headlined by Joe Flacco against Lamar Jackson. Baltimore cruised to a 41-7 win, but the box score doesn't tell the whole story. The Ravens' offense wasn't particularly sharp, finishing with just 46 rushing yards and 243 total. Credit to Cleveland's defense, they held up well. But a handful of critical mistakes flipped this game. The biggest came at 13-3, when Nate Wiggins picked off a pass and returned it to the Browns' 5-yard line, setting up a Baltimore touchdown that stretched the lead to 20-3. From there, both teams traded scores before the Ravens sealed it with a defensive touchdown for Cleveland. This game exposed exactly what I worried about before the season. Against a team like Baltimore, they just don't have the offensive firepower to mount a comeback. The defense has been strong through 2 weeks, but the offense and special teams continue to lag. Baltimore, on the other hand, avoided what could have been a trap game. The offense wasn't flashy like Week 1 against Buffalo, but sometimes you just take the win. Ravens fans know it well. An ugly win beats a pretty loss every time. Down in New Orleans, we got one of the best quarterback duels of the young season as Mac Jones faced off with Spencer Rattler. Both showed out, but Jones had the last word, throwing for nearly 300 yards and 3 touchdowns to lead the 49ers to a 26-21 road win. What stood out was San Francisco's balance. 5 different receivers topped 30 yards. That's huge, especially for a roster dealing with early season injuries. The bigger headline? The Niners are 2-0, both wins on the road. A year ago, close games doomed them at 2-6 in one-score contests. This year, they've already flipped that script, starting 2-0 in the exact same situations. If they can get healthy, this is a team to watch closely. As for the Saints, yes, they're in rebuild mode, but there were encouraging signs. Rookie tackle Kelvin Banks looked solid aside from a couple of mistakes. Rattler showed more flashes of his upside. And Jonas Sinker stepped in when called upon and delivered. That's what you want in a rebuilding year, identifying your cornerstones. They may not stack wins, but you can already see the foundation being built. Meanwhile, the Bills rolled past the Jets 30-10, and it wasn't nearly that close. Buffalo was up 30-3 well into the 4th quarter, controlling the game on both sides. This had trap game written all over it, especially after Buffalo's recent struggles at MetLife, but they ran for over 220 yards and cashed in on 4 drives of 60-plus yards. Defensively, Joey Bosa starred as the unit held New York to just 154 yards. The only Jets touchdown came late in garbage time, with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. Aside from a brief Josh Allen injury scare, this was as smooth a Sunday as Bills Mafia could ask for. For the Jets, that final score is misleading. Their lone touchdown came under Taylor, not Fields, and the problems were everywhere: shaky QB play, defensive breakdowns, and costly penalties. Brandon Stevens was again a liability in coverage, and Michael Clemens roughing the passer penalty on 3rd and 19 extended Buffalo's opening drive and set the tone for the rout. This is one of those games you burn the tape, regroup, and move on. Cincinnati delivered a thriller against Jacksonville, edging out the Jaguars 31-27. The win came with some uncertainty, though, as Joe Burrow left the game early and his status remains unclear. Of course, we hope for a quick recovery for him and everyone else who went down this week. But the Bengals' bottom line is simple. 2-0 is 2-0. Jake Browning stepped in and did his job, and Zach Taylor put together a plan that kept the offense afloat. Long-term success hinges on Burrow's health, but for now, Cincinnati is stacking wins, and that matters most. For the Jaguars, this loss stings. Brian Thomas Jr. was targeted 12 times but only managed 4 catches and multiple drops, leaving him at just 5 receptions on 19 targets through 2 weeks. Many of his breakout moments came last year with Mac Jones under center, and this feels like a very different situation. The frustrating part? This was a winnable game. The Devin Lloyd interception call will be debated, but ultimately Jacksonville let this one slip away. And with a brutal stretch of games coming up, we'll quickly find out what Liam Cohen's team is made of. Finally, Rams, Titans. A 33-9 Rams win wasn't surprising. Sean McVay simply doesn't lose these kinds of matchups, and Brian Callahan's Titans are already showing cracks. Through just 2 weeks, Tennessee has piled up 23 penalties, and that undisciplined play reflects directly on coaching. With J.C. Latham and Tvondra Sweat sidelined, the roster was already shorthanded. But the lack of discipline is the bigger issue. If this continues, Callahan's time in Nashville could be short-lived. Hello everyone, welcome back to TFD. Week 2 of the season is nearly in the books, and it kicked off Thursday night with the Commanders taking on the Packers. Green Bay walked away with a commanding 27-8 win. At first glance, the score might suggest a competitive game, but the action on the field told a completely different story. Through 3 quarters, the Packers racked up 345 yards compared to Washington's 112. That pretty much sums up how lopsided things were. At one stage, Jaden Daniels had only 8 completions on 13 attempts for just 43 yards, highlighting the Commanders' offensive struggles. For Green Bay, the storyline remains the same as Week 1. This defense is the real deal. They look like a unit capable of pushing the team into Super Bowl conversations. Micah Parsons once again dominated, making impact plays that don't always show up on the stat sheet but completely shift momentum. On offense,